The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to another hour here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, X Zone Broadcast Network, iHeartRadio, Simul Radio, and Simul TV. If you'd like to find out about the programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit www.xzbn.net. And for all the programming on the X Zone TV channel that is exclusive to Simul TV, visit their website at simultv.com. Exonation, my guest this hour is the author of a stunning book, a fantastic work that I've had the pleasure of reading and having the author on the show a number of times. The book is entitled The Genesis Grid, and it's by Peter Woolford. Now, in this bombshell discovery, already reviewed and agreed by several PhD qualified academics in the United Kingdom, it is shown that the Genesis Chapter 1 has been built on the first 31 digits of pi, the world's most memorized number. Furthermore, it is shown that for the first time that there exists a pattern within the digits of pi. The experts are so far unanimous, and this is a quote from each and every one of the experts, "You have a pattern." After more than 7 years of painstaking research, this astounding breakthrough, so simple that its fundamental could be illustrated by preschool children, proves that a number pattern from pi, which is a 3.14159, and it goes on and on and on, appears in 11 separate places within the Bible. Shockingly, this pattern is implanted within the human reproductive system in 3 different ways. A race greater than man has constructed the Bible, and they are controlling today's world. In these last days of the present era, they are telling us why they are here and what happens next in the Genesis Grid. For more information on the Genesis Grid and to find out more about our guest of this hour, Peter Woolford, visit www.genesisgrid.co.uk. And Peter, welcome back to the X Zone.
Thanks, Rob. Very pleased to be back.
So let me see, what have you been up to since you and I last talked?
Well, a number of things. I mean, I've perhaps not done so much promoting the Genesis Grid in recent months, but I have been engaged in writing some fiction on a theme that I think is very interesting to people, increasingly so, which is artificial intelligence.
Big time.
And I'm writing, a series of books. I've written 4 since February. With all the artwork covers have been done. 2 of them are uploaded and ready to be advertised. There are 5 reviews already on the first book. But they're written as a series to be read as a continuous story, so each book ends with a cliffhanger. So that's what I've done, and I'm feeling pleased that I've got that done. It was very hard work. It's not really related to the Genesis Grid, except to say that it is a commentary on what's going on in the world. But to make the subject more interesting, I've written it as a dystopian novel set in 2045.
You know, Pete, when you and I last spoke, I think it was in the fall of 2016, you were very firm about a Trump victory in November, in the November 2016 election. It didn't look very likely at the time. You were right, but why were you so certain?
Well, actually, a few days before that, the Brexit in the UK,
yes,
a few days before Brexit, that was actually the 23rd of June in 2016. So it was, 5 months before the Trump victory. But a few days before that, I phoned a friend who's a farmer from the middle of the country. He's older than me. He remembers all about World War II. And I hadn't spoken for a couple of years. I phoned him up and said, do you think the weather might have anything to do with this vote? And we hummed and hawed. We speculated that, who knows, it might do. Something might happen, some act of God,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the polls indicated that the Remainers would win. And the polls in the Greater London area where I live indicated that the Remainers would win by 80-20. Now, nationwide, it was much closer than that. It was closer to something like 45-55, something like that, but in favour of remaining in the EU. However, when the day came round, the weather was, and this was only literally about 3 days after the conversation, which we speculated, the weather was absolutely freak. What we saw in the Greater London area were cars floating, we've never seen this before, polling stations where people vote being uprooted and lifted to high ground, so nobody knew where they were. There were lightning strikes which shut down 3 train networks. By tea time, there was only one line working out of Liverpool Street, which is a huge terminus where all the well-paid Remainers will be commuting home to take their votes. Now, that evening, I was actually parked up in a town called Radler, which is close to where I live, and I watched the heavens open. It was a lead-coloured sky, and it was like a tropical monsoon. I know what they are because I've been to the Philippines. I know what a monsoon's like. It was like a monsoon. It went on for half an hour. Rivers of water. There were people with water up over their ankles in the streets. Nobody was going to go and vote in that weather. There were massive lines of hold-ups in the traffic. People could not get home. There were huge queues all around, well, probably most of Hertfordshire. What I'm saying is that we've never seen weather like that before, in the UK anywhere, certainly not over London.
Right.
And we probably never will again. It just happened on that one day. Now, the proof that had something to do with the result is this, that the polls, as I've already said, were 80-20 in favour of Remain for the Greater London area, an area within the M25 circle motorway with about 10 million people living there. Okay, now, in reality, after they did the post-mortem, as it were, they found that the actual vote was not 80-20, it was 60-40. And if you look at the number of people living there, number of voters, that was enough to account for the win for Brexit. That was enough. In fact, if you take nationwide, I think it was 21 million people voted. If you took 880,000 of them and switched them the other way, you would have actually reversed it from 52-48 in favour of leaving to 52-48 in favour of remaining. So I believe, and I put this past some of those sceptical people I know, and they agree. They say, yep, it looked like an act of God. So it took me a week or two for that really to sink in. I thought, yep, it definitely looks like an act of God. So once I digested that, I thought, well, that's it then. Trump's going to win.
All right.
Because,
now, when you say...
In brief, that's the explanation.
All right, when you say Remainers, what are they? I'm not familiar with that term.
Remainers are people who want to stay in the EU.
Right.
Brexiteers are people who want to leave the EU.
Right.
And the consensus had been that we would probably remain, and we would have done, but if it hadn't been for the weather. So we're now splitting away from Europe, and when we succeed in doing so, we will be blamed for ruining the show because other nations are interested in getting out of Europe. And if Europe were in its present form to implode, I can assure you, whether we ever get the deal we want or not, we will receive the major portion of the blame for wrecking the EU.
Well, why does Britain want to secede from the European Union?
Well, we were lied to when we went in 1974. The politicians then knew full well that it would be working towards a political union.
Right.
We were sold on the fact that it was merely a marketplace where we could make more money. Problem with the EU is it actually, as a customs union, it's a fortress. For example, we can't buy food from Africa because we're in the EU. The EU refuses to buy food from Africa because it's protecting its own farmers for military reasons, because obviously the internal food supply is of massive strategic importance in a war.
Definitely.
And this is a stronghold. This is like a fortress against the rest of the world, and we're weakening the walls. So, we're going to get the blame when it all collapses. And I think it will collapse and then reform in another much more ugly form. And the clues there, the straws in the wind there, are all of these right-wing parties now springing up in Europe because Merkel, following orders from her superiors, who we never see or hear of, is allowing this mass immigration from places like Syria and Libya, which is driving the voters to the right-wing parties.
Peter, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. X Zone Nation, my good friend Peter Woolford is our guest. He is the author of a book that I strongly suggest people get a hold of. It's entitled The Genesis Grid. His website is genesisgrid.co.uk. Peter and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, you can get the current copy of the X Chronicles newspaper as well as all the newspapers that come out with our complement at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. However, if you'd like to buy the print version, it's available on Amazon.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Exonation. Peter Woolford is my guest this hour. www.genesisgrid.co.uk. So, what is going to happen to Great Britain and the United Kingdom, in your opinion, when it does leave the EU? Are the citizens going to suffer?
I think there are strong arguments to say that we'll do better outside of the EU, and I entirely agree with the people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's a very prominent British parliamentarian, I should say, and fancied very much to become a future Prime Minister, when he says that, you know, we will benefit from free trade, we'll be able to trade with any nation in the world, get cheaper food, clothes, all the things, in fact, that the poorest of society suffer the most from having to pay through the nose.
Sure.
When it's available more cheaply, if we could only get out of this restrictive arrangement. I personally think we probably won't do very well. I think this country is on a downward trajectory for a number of reasons, and we have a very weak manufacturing base. We're very dependent on the City of London, and that actually accounts for an enormous proportion, something like 30 or 40% of our wealth, just through that square mile. It's very corrupt. There's a lot of criminality in the City of London. The business they're doing is strongly coveted by the Germans, and they have an alternative, of course, Frankfurt. We even have a German running the British Stock Exchange in this country, and they've got their greedy eyes on that business. And I think this country is very vulnerable. I feel I live in a cursed country because I've been here all my life. I watched it go downhill. I don't think leaving the EU is going to save us, let's put it that way. It's right that we should, in principle, be self-governing and not have to kowtow to unelected people in Brussels. Mm-hmm. It's right in principle, and it will be nice to see that lot jettisoned. It won't save us. I don't think we're going to prosper either way. That's my own doom and gloom evaluation.
How has the immigration status in the United Kingdom changed because of the EU?
Yes, it has. We have nearly 500,000 people flooding in every year.
My God.
I mean, the figures fluctuate up and down, but the figures are some years it's absolutely enormous. And if we come out of the EU, it won't stop it because we can't stop. We've got people living in the EU. And in fact, the cream of our society tend to go and live in places like France and Spain. So therefore, they're going to take more and more of their unemployed people, and they're going to come here from some countries which are, pretty dubious. I mean,
sure.
Poland's good. Very nice people come from Poland, and they don't stay long. I think a lot of them save a bit of money, go home, get married. But there are other countries.
Yeah, plus the people from Poland don't turn out to be terrorists.
But that's right.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at people, obviously, yes, from the more Middle Eastern places are very high risk.
Yeah.
And there are places like Albania and in these small Far Eastern, East European nations, some of which are very problematic. And we have very high crime rates from, not necessarily Albania, but there are several of them, one or two of which are responsible for very high crime rates here. Half of the people from those countries end up in our jails. And so they're just basically giving us all the riffraff. And I have to say the character of the society I live in, the town where I was born, has changed out of all recognition, not just because of the architecture and the road system, because of the flood of people who are, I won't say denigrating things about people, but honestly, you'd find it hard anywhere in the world to see a more shambolic procession of disabled people, very shabbily dressed people who are begging, who haven't washed for a couple of weeks. Watford is a rich town, but the town centre really is frightening. I mean, it's just frightening. It's a complete melting pot. And everywhere you go, you hear foreign languages. Now, I know that makes me sound like Nigel Farage. I mean, I enjoy, more than he does, living in a multicultural society because I've got black friends, I've got Muslim friends, I've got friends in wheelchairs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not saying he couldn't have those friends. I've got those friends, and you know, I've known some of them for 40 years. So I don't have any inbuilt prejudice against anybody, but I simply don't believe, although for me personally, it's not a great thing that we have a multicultural society. It doesn't work for most people, and it doesn't work for the social systems of the country that are overburdened. You know, to get a house, anybody to rent a house, I mean, you know, you can't understand it unless you live there, how awful the effects of immigration have been. And that is why we voted to leave. If you look, apart from my little illustration with the weather there, there's huge numbers of people who, most of them were not in London, voted. And I can tell you the primary reason was immigration. They voted to get out of immigration.
Why couldn't the British Parliament put a cap on the immigration crisis before it got way out of hand?
Well, they deliberately threw the floodgates open. This was Tony Blair in 1997. They deliberately threw the floodgates open. My view of politicians and top leaders has somewhat changed since then, which was 20 years ago. I'm now increasingly convinced that you're only eligible for promotion to top positions usually, and this doesn't apply to Trump, but usually if you can be blackmailed and controlled by the people who maneuvered you into that position. I think most people are puppets. Most of these people are puppets, and they do what their masters want. Now, what do their masters want? Their masters are globalists. And this is the great divide between Trump and all of the people who hate him, including the rigged media, because they are all attached to a globalist one world government agenda, as is the EU, which is the epitome of it. They are a one world government in embryo. And those who follow the one world government gospel, which has been a private, secretive gospel until recently, and the lid's been blown off it, are totally opposed to Trump, the nationalist, who we all know what Trump says and what he believes in. And it's the absolute opposite. So the globalists have controlled these people, Merkel, people like this, to throw the floodgates open. And so far as Benghazi is concerned, Libya, that was the Clintons' war. That was Hillary Clinton's war. That was a completely unnecessary war. But like so many skirmishes in the world, it has been deliberately lit by CIA, various factions in Washington, politicians. John McCain, for example, very much involved in funding ISIS or the terrorists in Syria, whatever their latest name is. They've had so many names. This is a plot. This is a plot to undermine nation states, to create enough chaos to bring about a one world government. It's going to fail in the near term. Trump is defeating them. But I think after Trump has gone, I think it'll go their way, I'm afraid.
See, the way I look at it, Peter, is that the governments are allowing the different factions to come into the country just for their own political gain, because a person who immigrates with his family, they are securing their votes for the party.
Yes.
You know, it's plain, it's simple, it's basically payola. You know, I'll let you into the country, and sure, we'll do that. Like when they land in Canada, we were losing our rights left, right, and center. We can't say Merry Christmas anymore. We can't call it a Christmas tree anymore. It's no longer Easter because we're not being politically correct. Well, my idea of political correctness is, hey, if you're not satisfied, you know where that plane landed, it also takes off. Go back to where you came from.
Yes, indeed.
But the government doesn't look at it that way.
No, that's right. And it's always the socialists, of course, who pick these votes up. And you're absolutely correct about that. Of course, it's not the whole story, because the immigration that they promote to get themselves into power, it's not just to get, it's not just for votes, of course. You realize that. It's not just for votes. It's also because they want to break down national borders to create a one world government. And if they can turn us all into the same color, and I have mixed race grandchildren, so maybe I'm be permitted to make such a statement. But there is actually in Europe an award called the Richard Cazenove-Kalergi Award. This was a European aristocrat back in the 20s, 30s who wrote a book in High German so people couldn't understand it, and basically promoting the idea of bringing literally hundreds of millions of Africans into Europe to mix everybody up, break down all the national borders with a view to helping to create a one-world government. We haven't realized until very recently that is the way these people think. In fact, the Cazenove Prize, is awarded every other year, and the last winner was Angela Merkel for promoting the ideas of Richard Cazenove-Kalergi, who's been long dead, but his ideas are just a perpetuation of the things that people like George Bernard Shaw and H.G. Wells were talking about 100 years ago when they set up the Fabian Society in London to promote what they called was socialism. I would call it communism.
Peter, stand by. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Peter Woolford is our special guest. He's the author of The Genesis Grid. Peter's website is www.genesisgrid.co.uk. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Peter and I return after this news break. Don't go away.
Broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond. You're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God,
love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Peter Woolford is my guest. He's the author of the Genesis Grid, www.genesisgrid.co.uk. You know, in the animal kingdom, as well as in the fish kingdom, the reptilian kingdom, there are animals, there are species that just cannot live together. It is impossible. Why is it that people are being forced to do the exact same thing, live together when they can't?
Yeah, well, as I said before, I think it is the globalist conspiracy. Funny enough, go back a couple of years, you would never hear the word globalist. That's right. In the mainstream media, but now you do. And even I listened to a speech by Donald Trump yesterday, and this was a speech made in recent months, and he said globalism, the globalists. He was just speaking these words, probably at one of his rallies, and he says, "Look, I'm a nationalist. You know, we don't need all this globalism. You know, I'm very skeptical about the idea of bringing nations together into artificial groups. I would like to do deals with nations on a one-on-one basis, which is exactly what he's doing." So I would say that is the short answer, that they have this drive for the one world government, which in my opinion is a satanic notion.
I agree.
And in fact, if you look at the architecture, it is. I mean, if you look at go to Brussels and the other place, the name of which escapes me, where they have the parliament, they move over there once a month for meetings, Strasbourg. If you look at the architecture in both these buildings, particularly Strasbourg, you will see a depiction of the Tower of Babel. The Strasbourg Parliament building is circular, like a gasworks,
right,
which has been not completed. You know, if you've ever seen a photo of it, you know what I mean. It looks as if it's incomplete, and it is actually a complete takeoff of a famous painting of the Tower of Babel, in which it is incomplete, of course. They're rebuilding Babel. They're going back to a one-world situation. Now, according to the Bible story, it was a one-world language. But what they want is a one-world government. And English is the world language. We have the internet as well. So we have this sort of accelerating situation where not only is it technology producing accelerating rates of return, but also the aims and goals of politicians has been doing the same thing. And Trump, of course, is the spanner in the works.
You know, it's ironic because President Trump is a business person. He's not a politician. Anybody who knows anything about the smallest bit of the political scenario in the United States knows that. He may not be a political guy. His language is totally different from anybody that we've seen. You know, President Obama did his thing yesterday at a university in Illinois, and he's a very eloquent speaker. You listen to Trump, and Trump gets to the bottom line. President Trump has done a lot more for the country than President Obama ever did. In fact, I think the election of Obama was a sociological experiment that went wrong. And he's getting the job done, and he's rubbing the political powers the wrong way because he is draining the swamp. He's doing for the American people what he said he would do. Yes. And they're not used to that.
No, they're not. And when he said he was going to drain the swamp at his inaugural address, everybody assumed he meant Washington.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He meant the whole planet, actually. And the proof of that is that when he went on his first tour, the very first place he went to was Saudi Arabia. And the reason for that is that in his mind, and I think in reality, they were the epicenter, the beginning, the nexus of world financial corruption. And if you remember, he gave a speech saying the funding of terrorism's got to stop.
Right.
Within days of leaving, the young chap, Salman, who was about, I think, 34 years old, he organized an expo, and this was held about 2 or 3 months later, got all of his relatives in, put them in a Waldorf hotel, got them in front of this robot made in Sophia, made her a citizen of Saudi, got her up on the stage with her creators from David Hansen and a bloke called Ben Goertzel from Hong Kong, operating out of Hong Kong. And he invited these people, to his brothers and sisters and uncles and aunties and nieces and whatever, to invest, you see, in AI, which most of them declined to do. But at the end of the expo, as you probably know, he imprisoned them in their Waldorf hotel. A bloke called Talal, who had 17 billion, and most of this money had been stolen and filched from the Saudi Arabian state. He was strung up by his feet, wasn't he? Do you remember that? He was strung up by his toes, and I saw a shot from the mobile phone that they'd taken from inside his hotel. They didn't have bedrooms. Salman put mattresses out for them in the atrium of the hotel. And that's where they have to sleep every night. They're probably all still there, you know. But what Trump said to him was, this corruption has got to stop. You've got to stop funding politicians. And you mentioned Obama earlier, but Talal put Obama through college and university. He paid for Obama's education.
Really?
And when he took over in 2008, he sent a letter to Obama saying, right, now these are the people I want in your cabinet. He got nearly all of them. So that's how a lot of the politicians, both in London and in America and in other places, have been controlled through Saudi money. And that's why the first place Trump went to was Saudi Arabia. The second place was the Vatican.
Right.
That's another story.
You know,
another.
I've been comparing President Trump to other presidents in U.S. history, and the only other president that I think comes close to President Trump was John F. Kennedy, because John F. Kennedy wanted to basically clean the establishment. He wanted to disband the CIA. He didn't want to go into Vietnam and many other things, and he was assassinated. Yeah. Is history going to repeat itself?
No, because Trump is protected by the army. He's their candidate. And this attack on the White House, if that's the right word, that was mounted by Trump, was put in by the army. They said, look, we nearly mutinied. Under Obama, he was going to start a war with Russia. There even was allegedly a nuclear explosion in the sea 600 miles off the coast of Virginia.
Wow.
When a nuke went missing, they were going to try and do a false flag in USA to start war with Russia. They've been trying to start war with Russia ever since Trump was elected. It's not working for them. The army, they said, well, they were mutinying. And in fact, Obama sacked a very large number. It's over 100 people associated with the control and launch of nuclear weapons, because the army weren't going along with his demands. They knew he was out to start a war with Russia. This is the globalist plan. And so, anyway, having frustrated Obama, they had a choice. They said, either we actually have a mutiny here and we march on Washington and have and impose a military junta on the country to stop a nuclear war, or we play along with it for a bit longer and we put our own candidate in. Trump's their candidate, and they're protecting him, and that's why they can't kill him. There's been allegedly a dozen attempts on him. They can't get him because the army is protecting him.
But the army was protecting the United States on September the 11th as well, and look what happened on that day.
Yeah, but that was wrong. That's because the politicians had the wrong people in the White House. That's the answer to that. But with Trump in the White House, the army protecting him, the deep state can't get him. They are trying very hard. And but they control the media and they attack him continually through the media. But no, I agree with you that Kennedy was out. He said he'd smashed the CIA to 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
They got him first. I say they and their cohorts got him first. Trump's a different case. He will survive because he's being protected by the army night and day. They have a powerful vested interest to keep him in power because he's giving them a lot of money and he's looking after their vets.
Right.
And they don't want war with Russia, you know. So that's the situation with Trump, and he is out to drain the swamp worldwide, and that means, yes, Saudi Arabia first, then the USA, where he's got you've probably heard, he's got over 40,000 sealed indictments against people.
Yeah.
There have been huge arrests of pedophiles and drug traffickers and people traffickers across the USA under his watch, never gets reported. Remember, his approach is very pro-human. In December last year, he signed an executive order declaring a state of national emergency. Most people don't know this, but a state of national emergency exists in the U.S. Not martial law, but a state of national emergency in respect of people trafficking. And he has authorized, I think it is the State Department, to take the money of any American worldwide suspected of involvement in or with serious evidence against them in respect of people trafficking. That more than often means children,
right,
out of places like Haiti, and you've heard some of these accounts.
Peter, stand by. We've got to take our final break. Exonation. Peter Woolford is our very special guest. He's the author of The Genesis Grid, the website, www.genesisgrid.co.uk. And Peter and I will be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035
extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Peter Woolford is my guest, www.genesisgrid.co.uk. He's the author of The Genesis Grid. And Peter, it's always great having you on the show. So good having you with us again, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to be on. Really enjoyed discussing some of these questions.
Peter, we mentioned briefly about President Trump and his visit to the Vatican. What did you see that as?
Well, I wasn't sure at the time, but looking back now, I think pretty well what's happening is that it was an object, it was an exercise, I should say, in intimidation, much justified. We could speak all day about the Vatican. We all know what they're up to, don't we? We've heard that letter from Vignola, or what his name is.
Right.
He was a very much respected, trusted man, isn't he? Considered to be a very honest, truthful man. He was the one-time ambassador from the Vatican to the USA, wrote an 11-page long letter totally condemning everything the church is doing, calling for the Pope's resignation, for cover-up of you-know-what. And it's not just Peter, it's also full-blown homosexuality within the Curia and all the people in Rome. So, I mean, it absolutely stinks. The idea of those people running a church where you would teach other people's children is horrendous. But it's all been covered up in the mainstream media. If anybody needed evidence that the mainstream media are totally and utterly controlled, there you have it, because we've heard nothing about it from them. But they're going to find they cannot suppress this information for much longer. But I think that it was a shot across the bows. And interesting, I think it's also much the same when he recently visited England. He came here.
Yes, not that long ago.
Prime Minister. Yeah, it was a shot across the bows. I think the real reason for his visit was to see the Queen. And when he saw the Queen, he did something that everybody was up in arms against. They said, oh, he walked in front of her. This is a terrible breach of protocol. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Yes, he does know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing, and I believe he's in pretty well total control of everything that's going on, because he walked in front of her and he was telling her, I'm going to take your power away. Because she's much more powerful than people realize, and we won't go into all of the Diana things and all those other things, but we certainly did see her son Andrew emblazoned across the front of British newspapers only about a year or so ago, when he was photographed with Jeffrey Epstein, who runs the Lolita Express airplane to his sex island. Andrew standing there with his arm around an underage girl. And there are all those people who go down there, Clintons, also these people, Podestas, they're all on film. And the horrible thing for them is that Trump has everything, because the NSA is controlled by the Navy, who are part of the armed forces. General Rogers, running the NSA, came to Trump the day after he was elected to say, you're being spied on. And he was nearly destroyed for doing that. He came to Trump and said, look, you're being spied on in this building. And Obama and the Clintons are spying on you for political gain, both during the campaign and in the interim period when he was president-elect. He's spied on. That's called Spygate. Right. In the general nomenclature. Now, you may well know, the evidence is all coming out now. It's being dripped out very slowly by Trump. He has everything. All the phone calls, all the emails, and they know it. And this outburst from, just a minute. I've got a problem with my, an alarm has just gone off. I've stopped it. Yesterday's outburst from Obama is fueled by his anxiety that he's soon going to be in front of a military tribunal, because in March Trump signed an executive order empowering civilians who are going to be called in front of military tribunals, which is actually illegal in America under the Constitution, to take accusations of treason and espionage. I believe that is what McCain had hanging over his head, and he may have taken an easy way out. I don't know. We don't know yet, but there's some suspicion about McCain's disappearance. I don't necessarily believe that what we're told is that he just stopped taking his medicine and died. No, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But Obama, the Clintons, Comey, so many others of people like that, they will. I am absolutely confident they will be going in front of military tribunals, and that the ability to do this takes effect in January. So after the midterm elections, after Christmas, then Trump can begin to roll out this program of arrests. He has over 40,000 sealed indictments.
Plus, if he gets Judge Kavanaugh to sit on the bench,
Kavanaugh,
he's going to be he's a shoo-in. Let's face it. What we're seeing on television right now is just the pomp and circumstance and the Democratic Party just shooting off their mouth because they know how much crap they're in. They know that the jig is up.
That's right. Their nostrils are only just above a very, very deep pit of filth that they've been swimming in. And Gitmo has been upgraded, as you probably know. Another 800 highly trained police have been sent to Gitmo. It's been renovated at the cost of tens of millions, hundreds of millions of pounds probably, to get it ready for all of the high-profile people, of which McCain would certainly have been one if he'd not exited as abruptly and unnaturally and unbelievably as he did.
Let me ask you this, Peter, because our time is running on very fast.
Yeah.
What did you take of the McCain funeral where the sitting president of the United States was not invited?
Well, it's disgraceful, but he was promised, I believe. I mean, I don't know this is true, but I've heard some very powerful theories, which I don't have time to go into, that in fact he was executed. I'm not saying he was, but I suspect he was executed. He was given a choice that you go out with a bang and you get a state funeral. We give you the Winston Churchill treatment. Or you go through military tribunal, you're taken to pieces in public, and then you go to Gitmo for the rest of your life. Because we know you're a traitor, we know you've aided the enemy, we can impose the death penalty on you. And he's probably already been in front of a grand jury, and he's been told, look, that's your choice. So he's taken his little pill, and he's gone. I think that's the most likely explanation of all the facts, which otherwise don't make any sense.
Why do you think there is such an uproar still about this Russia investigation when to date there is no proof that President Trump had any knowledge whatsoever that the Russians were involved with the Clinton affair?
The Novichok.
Yeah.
In Salisbury. Yeah. People in Salisbury never believed the original account, neither did I. But they knew more about it than me. I've got contacts in that town. But the story that was originally presented and of course the guy who was supposed to have been poisoned his daughter, totally ridiculed the whole thing. Now, when I saw them upgrade revamp the whole scandal to another level with these two guys on the camera, as soon as I saw two guys on the camera, I thought, they're at it again. When you see certain images, and we switched to television and I saw these policemen standing a certain way and they had the little tents up and all that, I thought, no, this is a show. This is a media show. I don't believe it. I didn't believe the first one. I don't believe this one. But Trump has pitched in support. If it's false, he certainly knows it's false. But it's politically convenient because what he wants to do is get Putin to the negotiating table over Iran and Syria. Now, Syria's nearly resolved, I think, in Trump's eyes because the terrorists, it's nearly been routed now. The country retaken by its rightful leader. I know he's not a nice man. They're never nice men. But Iran is the real worry, and I think he wants Putin's help with Iran. So he's twisting Putin's arm very, very hard. And I think that's why he's immediately, not the only reason, but he's immediately aligned himself with European leaders to condemn the Russians for the Salisbury situation. He probably knows full well it has nothing to do with them at all. The whole thing's fake and was cooked up as a false flag some time ago. I think that the deep state do things sometimes to try and create conflict with Russia, but Trump simply wheedles around the back of it all and turns it to his own advantage.
You know, we've got about less than a minute, Peter, before we have to say so long. So
yeah,
I don't know what the media is like over in the United Kingdom, but over here in North America, it stinks. I've never been so embarrassed to be a member of the main core mainstream media as I am these days, because it seems that you've got this network slashing the president, that network kissing his butt. It's journalism is dead.
Yes, it is, and CIA have a lot to do with it. They've paid off people all across Europe, and there was a German chap from a newspaper recently saying, look, we've all been paid off by the CIA. We get trips to America, we get this, that, and the other. We're all prostitutes. It's just a mess. It's a total corrupt mess. But Trump knows this, and I think that he is putting it right. Most of what he's doing is behind the scenes. We don't get to see, but he's making massive strides against corruption.
Peter, I want to thank you for joining us. It's always a great pleasure talking to you, and the next time you're with us, we'll have to see exactly how the world has progressed from then until...
Yes.
So, Exonation, if you'd like to get more information about Peter Woolford, his website is www.genesisgrid.co.uk. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.